Hello and welcome to the Resonanz podcast. My name is Frank Pesci. For 20 years, I've been a composer of opera, art song, choral music, chamber music, and concert music, some of which has been performed in large concert halls around the world, and some of it has not, and is still on the shelf. I stand by all of it. The Resonanz podcast is an extension of Resonanz, which can be found at my website, frankpesci.com/resonanz with a Z, which is a collection of essays, podcasts, videos, technical nonsense, etc. If you are listening, you are most likely a supporter of mine on Patreon, and for that, I thank and welcome you. On the Resonanz blog, the most recent post concerns writing for singers, which is a huge topic. But the basics of it, for me, basically come down to my experience with writing for singers, which was dependent upon two aspects. First of all, I sang. I sang in opera chorus. I sang some solo. I sang in church choirs. And then, second, I wrote for and worked with the actual live singers who surrounded me, talking to them, learning what worked and what didn't through direct communication and collaboration with them. And we're going to take a look at this from a couple different angles, but the first thing that I wanted to do today and in this podcast was to talk about the difference between writing for church choir versus writing for opera chorus. Recently, I witnessed a performance of a massive work, Dream of Gerontius by Elgar, that really straddles the line of opera chorus and church chorus from a compositional standpoint. And obviously, when talking about the difference between opera and church chorus, one could talk about professionals, amateurs, a mixture thereof. However, in all situations, you have a different kind of singing that's required, and a different kind of writing approach that is required, mostly because of two things. And the first is going to sound very technical, but it's the idiomatic expression of the ensemble. So let's start with church music, and by which I mean choral music in its various incarnations, if you will, throughout the Christian tradition. Everything from basic hymn singing to singing the parts of the Mass or Eucharistic service, motets, any given Sunday. So again, the idiomatic expression of the ensemble and the demands of that ensemble are going to be different. The most obvious difference would be the accompaniment. In the church choir, you are, singing against either a piano or an organ accompaniment, or an expanded accompaniment of which the piano or the organ is the basis. When in opera chorus, on the other hand, you're singing against an entire pit orchestra, which could be up to, triple winds, triple brass, and a comparable string section in addition to all the possible percussion accoutrement. I remember my first teacher talking to me about Verdi writing his opera choruses with the idea in mind that those opera choruses would be populated by people who were trained to sing opera as a soloist. So you have, 60 of those people, 60 operatically trained singers singing together over an orchestra. So the kind of flexibility that's required is vastly different between choral contexts. And I would say that the church chorus lends itself, this is a very general comment, lends itself to a greater flexibility and variety of writing than does the opera chorus, because the voices in a church chorus can be a little more nimble. The voices can be asked to do a lot more polyphony that won't get lost. You're also probably dealing with more amateurs who may be open to a little bit more flexible writing, but also, while staying a little bit limited with their ability. But church choirs they can sound at home in polyphonic or homophonic settings. And for opera choruses, polyphony is completely possible, of course. But for me, it's like the difference between, a 15-foot sailboat and an oil tanker. One can simply move a little easier and with a little more fluidity with a church chorus, and can be, if not turned on a dime, it can certainly be asked to maneuver with a little bit more flexibility. So that's one, the idiomatic expression of the medium based on who's singing in it, kinds of ways that you can write for it. The second aspect, from my perspective and experience, is that these two types of ensembles play very different roles. The opera chorus stems from the Greek choruses and is there to enhance the storytelling, serves the purpose of commenting on action, both in the moment and also commenting on itself sometimes. So let's think of opera choruses that are amazingly wonderful, who serve by themselves a storytelling element. Let's think of the opera chorus at the beginning of Dr. Atomic. Any of the choruses in Peter Grimes, especially the big, when they're out searching for him. Let's think about the opera chorus at the end of Magic Flute, or about Fliegende Holländer, right? Flying Dutchman, the Ghost chorus, the Geisterchor. They serve dramatic storytelling element, where the purpose, in my experience, of the church choir is to enhance worship, and in so, to deflect emphasis on itself. The emphasis is on what needs to happen musically in order to make the service more move forward, to make the service move forward in a little more prescribed way. And if the motets and hymns are programmed appropriately, the choir can serve worship by providing context for, or even to enhance an aspect of, the readings of the day. So then how do you think about writing for such things? Well, the chorus in an opera has to be used very judiciously. They have to serve the purpose of punctuating the story, as I've mentioned before. They have to serve the purpose of pushing along the drama, again, right? But also keep in mind that the singers that you're going to be using in an opera chorus do not want to be used like scenery, personally. They will resent it, and they will resent you. So the writing has to be appropriate for their voices. It has to be appropriate for the story, and it has to use their abilities appropriately. And also keep in mind that the opera chorus is probably going to be doing 3 shows or 2 shows at the same time and rehearsing 2 others. So the judicious use of them is going to be incredibly important if you want to keep them happy. And this is all from a workplace standpoint. They're usually one of the most protected groups of performers in an opera house, at least in Europe, with the highest level of contract protection, the highest level of union representation and protections. So there's that. You don't want to piss them off. I'm not really sure how that works in the States, but that's how it works in Europe. And if you don't think that plays a part in how you write for them, then you should, because it is very important. And then if we're talking about writing for the church choir, the real indicative issue is that you're going to have to deal with the flexibility of writing and its ability to be worked up in a short period of time. Because if I'm talking about my Any Given Sunday choir, it's going to have a maximum, let's say, of 15 minutes of rehearsal for a new piece. So if my piece cannot be worked up to performance capability in 15 minutes of rehearsal, and then let's say that's in best case scenario would be a group of seasoned amateurs punctuated by a couple of paid singers. So the circumstances around which the type of music that is presented and the purposes that they serve and the manner in which you approach writing for these things, these kinds of choirs, has to be learned. And again, from my experience as a singer and working with real singers in real situations, I've come to understand the types of singers that are employed in both of these kinds of ensembles, and also the mentality of these singers, because the mentality of the church choir singer is very different from that of the opera chorus member. There are union roles, there are workplace situations, there are workload where if you're dealing with your Any Given Sunday choir, they will have 1 rehearsal during the week, maybe 2 if you're getting close to, big service days. Plus, then they meet on Sunday mornings, crank out what's going to happen then, and then they do the gig. And time is of the essence. I would say time is of the essence in both cases, but even more so with the church choir. So I could go on and on and on and on about this, but that's a good overview stemming from the blog post about writing for singers that I wanted to start with. So what are you writing? Who are you writing for? Are you stuck on an opera chorus? Have you been on a good run with, writing for your church choir? Boy, that's another blog post intentionally where a lot of the stuff that I started writing for church choir early in my career was for the choir for which I was a paid singer, and they served as a lab choir for a lot of things that I did over the course of several years, and it's really to them that I owe a lot. But it's because I got to know those people, and because I got to know those singers, and also because I was singing the part too. Learned so much about how singers operate and what they can and cannot do and what is appropriate to ask of them. So yeah, let me know what you're working on, and I'll be doing another podcast on the same topic and the difference between writing aria and writing art song. So stick around for that, will you? Anyway, this has been the Resonanz Podcast. Once again, you can find more information at my website, frankpesce.com/resonance with a Z. And again, if you've been listening to this, most likely you are a supporter of mine on Patreon, and I do really appreciate your support and that you're here. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.